Loving Heavenly Father, we thank you that we can draw near to your presence at this time, that you have given us this opportunity to come here, that before we start looking at any of the business and the decisions and choices that we have to make as councillors and as members, that we're able to come into you to seek your guidance and your blessing in all that is done. We thank you, Father, that you have given us this desire to be here as servants in our community, to help and to take forward and put in place things that are for the benefit of our community. And as we come to discuss and think about things, we pray that you would give us the wisdom and the guidance that we need. So many difficult and challenging decisions that we have to make. That with the resources that we've been given, that we would make best use of them and that they would be used to your glory and to the benefit of each and every one in our lives. Lord, we thank you for entrusting us with this, and we pray that we would be listening to, that we would heed your voice and your guidance as you show us the way forward, that it would be your will that is done in us. For Lord, if we don't go with your will, we are lost. But we thank you that you are there to guide us, and you have promised to go before, and all of the trust in you, that you will lead us and prepare the way for us. You are the light for us, that we would look to you and to your word for that guidance and that. Help us to consider all that is in. Be with Paul as he chairs this meeting, and thank you for him and members, and for all the officers of the council, for each and every one who's employed and who do diligently do all the work that the council is entrusted to do. Help us to be responsive to your leading and to your. Help us to be respectful of one another, and as we share different opinions and views, that we would know that together we're working with one purpose, and that is for the good and the glory of your name and for the advancement of our lives. Help us to unite each and every one of our communities, to work together and to know that it is only as we are together that we are strong, that we're able to go before us now and bless us in all we do. Help us to continue looking to put our trust in. For without you, we have nothing. But we thank you that the ear is open to us and we can come to you. You ask us to come to you and through the work of your Son, Jesus, you have opened that way of salvation for us. His finished work on the cross, his victory over the means that we can come to the very throne of heaven to bring our prayers and petitions before. To bless us now and keep us and guide us in everything we do, that it would all be to your good. For we ask it in your loving name.
Very much. Members, please ensure your microphones are muted on both your Teams device and your mobile device if you're listening to the translation. And if you wish to speak, only on your Teams device. The meeting will be recorded and will be available on the college website following the meeting. Items 17 and 18 will be considered private at the end of the meeting. I'm ruling items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 13 and 17 as urgent to allow the matters to be considered prior to the next meeting of the committee. First item on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting of the 26th of November, and that's for approval. Thank you very much. Item 3 is declaration of interest. As usual, we'd like to declare any interest in any agenda item at this point. And to become aware of an interest during the meeting, then I would ask you to declare it at that time. Are there any declarations? Nope. Okay. As we move into item 3 on the agenda, and that is the minute of the meeting of the Budget and Strategy Board of the 20th of January 2026, and that's for approval of the recommendation at item 3 of the minute. Ready for approval? Okay, thank you. Item 4 is the minute of the meeting of the Community Safety Board of the 28th of January 2026, and again that's for approval of recommendations, and these are items 6, 7, 8 and 9 of the minute. 8. Thank you. Item 5 is the minute of the meeting of the Human Resources Subcommittee on the 29th of January 2026, and that's just for nothing. Read note. Thank you. Item 6 is the minute of the meeting of Comhairle for the 2nd of February 2026, and that's for approval of the recommendations of items 6, 7 and 8 of the minute. Thanks very much. Item 7, finance and strategy. This report provides an update on the current position of the Comhairle's budget strategy for 2026-27, following the announcement of the Scottish budget and financial settlement for local government. The increase in the draft local government finance settlement 26-27 funded pay rises for both local authority staff and teachers, changes to road charges, Pact UK funding, and the new monies announced in the draft budget on 13th January 26 have allowed the Comhairle to reduce its expected deficit to around 2.6 million. It is essential that options are identified in conjunction with the information gathered through the public consultation in order to identify the savings and strategies for achieving long-term financial sustainability, and we can discuss these in detail at tomorrow's budget seminar. The recommendations from the Budget and Strategy Board are detailed at paragraph 5.4 of the report. Mr. Bird and Mr. Gomez available to speak to the report and answer questions. Mr. Bird.
Thank you very much, Chair. Since we have a budget seminar tomorrow and everything, of course, in this report is for determination and takes time at different meetings, I'll just confine my remarks to the process. This report reflects the conclusions of the Budget and Strategy Board, and its main purpose in process terms is in recommendation 2. It authorises Mr. Gomez and I to prepare a balanced budget based on the recommendations which were agreed, and if they're agreed today, we will do that, but also taking account, of course, of the discussion at tomorrow's seminar. But we need authority to prepare a draft budget, taking into account the realities of the budget settlement and of course the views of members expressed in all these bodies and at tomorrow's seminar, and that's the purpose really of this report. Everything in it has, I think, has been through the Budget and Strategy Board and will be covered in greater detail at tomorrow's seminar. So it's simply to authorise preparation of the budget. Thank you, Chair.
Very much. Mr. Gomez, okay. Members, any questions? In that case, the recommendation for approval of paragraph 3 of one of the report. Thank you very much. Item 8 is linked to this, and it is a report providing an update on the current position of the release of earmark balances and uncommitted balances. A review of overall balances will be undertaken to show the balance at the end of quarter 3. A number of assumptions are still in place and will be looked at in the upcoming weeks. Some of these include the projected revenue surplus at the end of quarter 2, assumptions on winter maintenance spend in the current year following the recent inclement weather, reviews of loan charges and investment interest, savings on utilities and other various factors. Based on these assumptions, it's estimated that there may be approximately £4.5 million of uncommitted balances in order to support the budget strategy for 2026-27. These will continue to be monitored and reviewed. This balance is in addition to the minimum balances of £3.5 million which are held in reserve, and Sir Gomez is available to answer members' questions. Anyone want to say anything? Members have any questions on this report? Sir Morrison?
Absolutely. I'm not going to it'd be good to maybe a few things on local maintenance as first with the production set. Is that something more? Given the sitting there, such line see but we're making change to that.
Yeah, we can get that information for you. We're still in the process of putting together what we want to be, but we'll be able to get an estimate of the projected extent if there is one. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. At the budget tomorrow, I'm going to get a list of all the unallocated balances, not just the recommendation ones.
Actually, yeah, we can provide a list of what's selected earmark balance, what's still earmarked, but it's we can get that list.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? So there are recommendations for approval of paragraph 2 for one of the report. Please, thank you. Item 9 is creative industries revenue funding. This report's for noting and summarises the current position of summarises the current position of calling funding for creative industries, arts, culture, Gaelic and heritage organisations. A 3-year exit strategy for the festivals and events receiving support was agreed by the Colony in February 2023. This has been implemented over the last 3 years and is scheduled to conclude at the end of this financial year. County state funds have been used during the 24-25 and 25-26 years to fund the economic development component of this exit strategy. The removal of the arts budget and within economic development is 24-25 meant no further scope for annual funding to Comhairle and the Mountain from mainstream budgets. Recognising the challenges posed, the Colony took the decision to use county state funding to maintain financial support for the Mountain and Comhairle at 2023 levels in 2024-25 and 2025-26. And this has sought to help both organisations manage the transition to reduce support from the local authority. Table at paragraph 6.5 of the report outlines the funding arrangements for the last 3 financial years. And Marie is able to speak to the report and answer members' questions.
Thank you, Chair. So I don't have much to add to your own introduction, other than hopefully it's useful for members to see the position across a range of funding for the creative industries, arts and culture and heritage sector. And as you say, arrangements are now coming to an end at the close of this financial year. So as I say, hopefully helpful, and really just to re-emphasise that we have sought to keep organisations updated on the position, and that there are no decisions required from this report as relates to decisions that have previously been taken. But it does note in conclusion that should members determine that the main option is to be continued allocation of Crown state funding, and that members may wish to consider this as part of their wider strategy for use of these funds. So nothing to add, happy to take any questions.
Much more to switch to that final point. Are there any questions or comments from members in this report?
Thank you, Chair. This is directed towards Eilean. I just wondered, would I be right in thinking that the various organisations knew about this a couple of years ago? They knew that this was coming to an end 7 years ago, and that the fuss now is they knew it was coming. Am I right?
Yes, so the ones that where the decision was made back in 24-25, they were informed of that.
Yeah. Mr. Budget, no?
Yeah, just to confirm, the matter has been brought up with these organisations conversationally from time to time as well. That's on many occasions since the official notification.
Thank you very much. No further questions or comments. Members agree to note the report. Thank you. Item 10 is write-off of debts, and this report recommends that a number of irrecoverable debts totaling £12,646.99 in respect of council tax, non-domestic rates, sundry debts and housing benefit over payments to be written off. Every effort has been made to recover the debts due, and write-off recommendations are only made when all recovery routes have been exhausted. Sandy's available to answer members' questions if there are any. If not, there are recommendations for approval of paragraph 3.1. Thank you very much. Item 11 is UK government funding. This report provides an update on UK government's structural funds and seeks approval of proposals to establish a pilot place programme in the Western Isles. Following a named selection process which the Colony participated in, the UK government announced that the successful neighbourhood would be strongly opposed. Discussion has now commenced on the rollout of pilot place and next steps for the Colony and establishment of the programme outlined in the report. Pilot place neighbourhood maps and the role of description of neighbourhood board chairs are appended to the report. And I suggest that looking at the time commitment and the responsibilities of the post of the chair, it should be modestly remunerated, and it will be delegated to the chief officer and the chief executive and chief officer in consultation with an MP to agree the level. And Anne is available to answer questions as well. Anne, is there anything more you'd like to say on the report?
Nothing to add to the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? Some up.
Thanks, Chair. You're mentioned last time, I'm a member of your committee. I take it any, as you say, monetary remuneration will be taken out, it would be allowed to take it out of the funds and not cost the council any more. Thank you.
Yes, that's good. So,
Thank you, Chair. Also, I'm coming back to the committee. Stornoway and Lewis seem kind of confused to me. There were 4 bidder, am I right? Stornoway and Lewis, North Lewis,
It
Stornoway, East and West.
It wasn't a bid as such, it was areas identified by the local government with consideration of end those further work done after that to decide what the areas would be.
We put forward 3 proposals, so what we've ended up with is a combination of 2 out of the 3 proposals.
To the exclusion of US number, but we'll skip it. Okay, so
Thank you, Chair. I'm very disappointed to know that we're not going to see anything under the shape of prosperity fund. This was a successor to the EU funding, as we know, but it really touched sides in terms of the former EU funding, but it is still significant and one of our revenue funding that actually provided jobs. And while we welcome a lot of the capital that money we get from the UK government, it's very disappointing that we haven't been included in this week's allocation, without what efforts are we making to give representations to the UK government to see if we can actually get something at least to cover us for the next to protect jobs and private service too.
it's very much Councillor Clyden. I'll pass on to executive short, but we have written, we discussed this at Eilean Regional Economic Partnership, and there's letters going from there as well. We discussed this at COSLA, and again, there's representation being made from the COSLA front, and we met with the local MP as well, so he's been active earlier as well, just to raise these concerns. But you're absolutely right. We'd expected a reduction, but to see absolutely nothing, it's really critical that the services that we provided through this. So we think that we need to manage that to a certain level over the next year or so. But inclusion officer and all the other posts that we funded, you're right, it's the revenue element is really important. And I don't think it's a success. It's not a natural change because it's the capital element, and that's not what we need in these circumstances. So really cheap executive.
Nothing to add to that really, leader, but latest information through our MP is that there's been no response from Scotland Office to representations, and that's the position reported by COSLA as well. So I think we have to presume that we're not going to hear back positively, even on a further transitional element of funding, which is very disappointing. As the leader has said, we have been able, through our own prudence and vacancy savings and really bits and pieces of funding here and there to continue these posts. I won't say too much in public about that. Continue these posts for the immediate period, but after this financial year, certainly there is no provision available. And the point which Councillor Clyden makes is a good one. This local growth fund is stated to be the successor of Shared Prosperity Fund, which was stated to be the successor of the EU structural funds. So actually this leaves us in the position now of having no structural funding at all. We have, of course, other and very welcome bid fund monies, but we have no now, the Highlands and Islands now has no equivalent at all to structural funding, and that's, I think, a position that the Comhairle and its fellow Highlands and Islands Council should not forget, and should be making representations about at every political opportunity. Thank you, Chair.
You asked him, I think, Don.
Just she was saying it's right, and we've gone from this year to see millions of funds from to nothing. So it needs to be a little cost contained. And do something.
I think you're right. There's also question marks with the metrics, measurements, data, etc. that was used in coming to this decision. And I think we've been adversely affected by interpretations of need. And we've always discussed SIMD, and there are two things that we're trying to work on in different areas to try and address that. So we've got metrics that are appropriate to us, and like governments recognise when they're allocating funding. But in this situation, it's it wasn't done very well. So much.
When I came on to the trade perspectives, but it's a point 6.2 of the board. Course of the importance is current comparison. We get 5.2. The young people supported, the groups and other from society. I must say the head we've had on the board themselves, and the news from this too. We've heard a lot of noise in the community about jobs over the budget. Reception, that's the original budget setting responsive. But I hope that we've considered this quite when this week. I think I already know anything's going on inside, but we don't see. Should get support from whatever means we can. But we have to get that on the right side. To make it very state again to assist it. But as far as I'm concerned, this really didn't work very hard. I very much, Chair, the risk of repeating myself, the point I made yesterday, I think, as well as being really disappointed to put it mildly, the effect on this particular round of funding. It's really important that the matrix that's been used isn't taken forward and seen as the future, because it'll affect this further in these meetings, that is the case. And I think the sort of areas that were being funded through this are going to suffer, and if we support these areas, then other areas are going to suffer as a knock-on. And it is, you know, it's as I say, if it's disappointing, doesn't really begin to cover it.
Sure, maybe both the previous points that we made, and yeah, we've raised the profile to a certain level, but I think there's a lot more things needs to be done, and it's definitely promising with this and a number of other fronts in terms of apprenticeships, especially. You know, there's, my eyes were set to reading some of this was happening across the country, and plus to be hit by this, just trying to find funding from another area, which again is extra money suggested we're going to have to prioritise where our funding is going to go. Not a good position to be in. That's right.
Thank you. Yeah, it just shows that position that was taken to leave Europe. Millions and millions of spent to get this island. And we gave it to anything. More than anything. In Europe. And it's Brexit. It's another.
Don't see any of the lights on the hands up. So in that case, the recommendations for approval of paragraph 3.1. Item 12.
Yeah. And that's with the authorization of the chief executive.
Yes.
Confirm the remuneration and terms and conditions.
Yes. Okay. Item 12, report seeks approval of a scheme of fees to be levied for discretionary services delivered by the Colony Development Management Service. Fees of this discretionary service, of the discretionary services, for which fees may be levied are detailed in paragraph 2.2 of the report. This report sets out a proposal for consideration by the Colony of an initial scheme of fees to be levied for discretionary services only for developments that fall within the category of major within the planning hierarchy. It's proposed that the fees be levied from 1st March 2026 and discretionary services charged subject to a review and a further report at the end of year one. And I believe housing is going to be speaking from that as well. And Maura Ferguson's online who's ready to answer members' questions. Maura, is there anything you want to say?
No, the report really just sets out, just for members to be aware that the planning fees themselves are set nationally, and this report is to do with discretionary services. So it is for effectively for pre-application advice, which is a non-statutory service. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the detail you gave yesterday as well. Yes, Brendan?
Sorry, I can see. Sorry, I forgot.
I put a request for members of my committee to contribute more than the non-members. We appreciate it. Thanks very much, Maura. There are no further lights or hands up, so recommendations for approval of paragraph 3.1. Thanks very much. Item 13. This report provides an update on progress on the Ballon Baptist Community Campus project in terms of Scottish Government funding project governance, project procurement and delivery, land acquisition and human resources. And Mr. Burr and Mr. McPhail will speak to the report. Mr. Burr.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies that many of you will have heard what I have to say yesterday at Education and Children's Services Committee, so I will be as brief as I can, but there is quite a lot in this report. I hope that members firstly will agree this is a very welcome report indeed. Why? Because it shows real progress on what we now need to be focused on, and that's the detailed business of delivering this campus. I draw your attention to paragraph 2.1 and 6.1, which really shows that in essence this corner has been asked to lead, working with our partners, the delivery process, and our partners are NHS, HHP, UHI, Police Scotland, and others, and you can read that for yourselves. But in essence, the process was started with a very detailed discussion paper, largely prepared by my colleague, Mr. McPhail. We had a very productive meeting with Scottish Government officials just before Christmas, and there's been a much discussion on back and forward since then. But what we need and what we will receive, I believe, very soon is a formal letter confirming Scottish Government financial support for the project and the terms and the basis of that funding support. There's another report on this agenda about the procurement and delivery process, and that's a very important report also, but I'll not cover these matters. Since this is the committee which looks after human resources, you've just approved the creation of the first set of posts which will help deliver this project. I don't think that will be the last minute or the last report on that subject, but that will give Mr. McPhail some support in taking the project forward. Land acquisition 2.4, very good news there. So I'll turn to project governance, which we discussed in some detail at Education and Children's Services, and that committee made recommendations consistent with what is in the report. Just to say, first of all, it is not the case that if you're on the project board, you know everything, and if you're on the reference group, you just get fed bits of information. Most of the reports going to the project board will also go to the reference group. There will be reports to this committee, more or less on a standing basis. I won't promise every agenda, but there will be reports to almost every committee, because this is our biggest capital project. Other officers, I would have liked, of course, to have every chief officer with responsibilities actually on the project board, but it's not so vital with officers, because officers are present as advisors, and other advisors can attend from time to time. The project board membership cannot be completely finalised, though, until Scottish Government confirm the identity of their senior responsible officer. At the moment, that function is discharged by the Cabinet Secretary and his executive team. Now, obviously, that's not going to continue, and it's likely Scottish Futures Trust would also be on the board, and I think they would be very welcome. Coming to the reference group, the list at Appendix 1, that's been discussed with local elected members. It probably doesn't cover every group in Barra. There's a couple that have been brought to my attention, but I draw your attention to 6.5. Other key community organisations such as ETL and others are required. So we can add others, but there must be, of course, a limit. And of course, the Barra Voluntary Action Barra and Battersea was added yesterday between the Area Forum, the community councils, and others, and Coyosnorth, Barra's Battersea. There's enough of that. There are representative organisations there as well. But we will agree the final details, as the report says, will be discussed and agreed with local members and affected groups, so we can take these representations into account. NHS Western Isles of course, may also have views about those who should be on the group and other partners as well. But thanks to local members for their assistance with that list of the reference group. The reference groups are very important group because that's the link between the community groups and the project board, which is tasked with delivering the project. I undertook yesterday to speak to both borough members about the remits of the project board and the reference group. I've spoken to one. I'll speak to the other on Tuesday, and I'll send out the remits of these groups as soon as these are finalised. So, in conclusion, we're waiting notification of the Scottish Government Senior Responsible Officer, and we're waiting for the letter with the details of the funding model. But encouragingly, the Scottish Government is quite happy with progress with finalising the governance arrangements, which we're doing today as far as we can, and the procurement strategy, which is the concurrent report. Why? To enable remobilisation of the design team and recommencing design development. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be getting on with this project, and this report, as far as it can, provides the means of doing that. So turning to the recommendations, I'm asking you to note the update and progress, approve the membership of the project board with the caveats that I've outlined, approve the membership basis of the reference group, noting that that's not the final word, note the project governance and delivery chart, and note the procurement strategy and appointment of a delivery agent and client advisors. These are the people who will help us deliver this. Is subject to a concurrent report later in this agenda. Mr. McPhail may have points to add. Chair and both of us are happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McPhail?
Nothing to add, thanks. We'll be with you shortly for the other report, but for the moment, nothing to add. Happy to answer questions.
Members, are there any questions on this report? Mr. McPhail?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of the I would I very much welcome the report and very pleased that things are going on now. As regards to the reference group, I believe that it's been asked of me that Comhairle and Darren are going to do a list and things like that would do. And I'm also of the opinion that there should be a local member of the project board, but I'm not going to put feedback today, but I just wanted to look at that. That's the right thing.
Chair, as I've said, I'll happily discuss with local members the membership of the reference group, but I know the request that these two groups do that.
Thanks very much. See any other lights? Hands? Have we quoted, or is just non-committee members that is? Okay, there are recommendations of paragraph 2.1 of the report for approval. Okay. Yeah. Or you can report.
Oh, yeah, yes, you asked for it. Just to clarify, Education Committee are recommending that the membership of the project board includes the director, the chair of Education and Children's Services. Is that? And with the addition of the groups that were mentioned, the councillor Neil and
Well, that'll be for discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that takes us on to item 14. And this report seeks approval for the establishment of a member officer working group to oversee planning and delivery of Modern Midland Share 2027 in the Western Isles. Hosting the mod in the Western Isles provides an opportunity to strengthen Gaelic language and cultural heritage, stimulate tourism and the local economy, and showcase the island's unique identity on the national stage. Previous mods have shown that success depends on early planning, support, strong governance, and active community involvement. It's recommended in the report that the convener, leader, deputy leader, and team members be appointed to the mouth, and personally I think the convener would be the chair of that, although that would be up to the committee. So call George to speak the report and answer any questions.
That would Because I can produce pretty large, just with the same I show Jarrow as a jealous Sahar Poland is by Catfish Gali, biggest in the world national leader. See Chile, the Hellas, and here to this old days, she has here. But what do you want from the truth? Found Billy, Billy, and through the enemy. I guess be a man and make a hell of a day for the rest of it. Be we no prof, the couple of blue, this committee in a dog. Discussion of the boy, I guess the officer and the hard for them, I guess, was to be Gali, Cheshmi and the whole profession. Good job, Jason Jarrett, what Shepard, Shane Mott and Yellow Shearer show, and Ian Mott Stornway, and Ian Mott Lewis, committee in a dog, that we get out, one view like the question that felt in Yellow Shearer. It's just really, the physical play, it will be economical. Ik de mod naast de bier, zoals die en zo voilà. Is dan ik messi maak naar de vrij, van mod waar we dus in het kooi. Is waar show in de volgende geel toch. Return on investment. It's a shiano, so we know it's the start. For Shenya ha generation the world the economical the mod naar de bier. Back make it college education see.
Vacation.
I nominate Mr. McNeil. I nominate Mr. McNeil for third.
Okay, and second from Swansea. Any other nominations?
Others?
So Clayton has the mic.
Kenneth McLeod.
Can you play hands? Yeah, second like Paul Finley. We're looking for one more member.
Bruce Walden.
Possible.
Ian McLeod.
Yeah, yes, today. And seconded by Mr. Early. Any others proposals? Not, then we'll accept those three. And the three that already rested. I think we've got time to get a members choir together. There was interest, so basically we can do an upfront. And eventually McLeod leading the way. I've heard him sing some Gaelic song yesterday. So, okay, if we're happy with that, on George, you're content with that's okay. Recommendations for approval, paragraph 3.1. Item 15, and this report provides an update on accreditation, apprenticeship, and employability and the risk to future funding levels. The Collier's accredited training and skills stream have played a pivotal role in enhancing employability and promoting apprenticeships for over 25 years, and providing support to individuals seeking to enter the workforce and develop their skills. The accredited training team deliver a wide range of programmes and receive multiple funding streams. In 2025, the Scottish Government introduced a bill to change the current funding model for post-school education, skills and training. This funding is currently administered through Skills Development Scotland. The Tertiary Education Bill aims to simplify the funding landscape and create a one-stop shop for funding through the Funding Council. On the 8th of January 2026, the UK Government announced details of the new £140 million local growth fund for Scotland. 5 regional economic partnerships in Scotland is left to receive this 3-year funding package. However, no funding has been allocated to the Highlands and Islands region. The lack of local growth fund funding and the Tertiary Education Bill pose a potential risk for the Foundation Apprenticeship Programme, employability services, adult learning and health and social care accreditation in the Western Isles, with a potentially negative and adverse impact on qualities and key strategies. Representation has been made through our members of Parliament and also by other Highlands and Islands local authorities, seeking both review of this decision and an award transitional funding. Again, we discussed this in the previous item, but I'll ask Dorina, you'd like to come in this report.
In Scotland funding, which has been decisions over the funding tax notification for more than 100 we have a 1 year living contract, new notification of condition apprenticeship, but then for the safety all of staff on the capacity of the project certification. Very important for the accreditation and training
very much. I'll bring Chippy back to starting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the tertiary education bill, as Ms Smith has indicated, we made multiple representations to Highlands and Islands list MSPs, our own MSP, and of course directed to the Minister before the bill became it was passed by the Scottish Parliament. Now, we've been very active too, or Mr MacLeod has, with ADES, the Association of Directors of Education, and I've been very Solace, my own organisation, is also very active on this front, because this does not just affect this council, it doesn't affect many councils, but we are not the only one, thankfully, which is affected by the provisions of this bill, this act. So the consequences, some of these consequences may be unintended. Now, the Minister did give a strong commitment in his summing up speech in the Parliament to address individually with councils their concerns. I haven't received any word from his office on that, and I'll leave it till into next week before making contact. But what Ms Smith has said partly worries me, because that shows the fragmentation of funding, some of it going here, some of it continuing transitionally, some of it we haven't heard about at all. So a coordinated approach is what we're looking for. We are supported in this by UHI. There is no issue with the college, because they recognise that what we are doing here is good for the community and it works. And so we have an ally there. I've spoken to the principal and to the chair of the UHI court, as well as to our local college leadership, who understand the position very well. So suffice to say, this is an ongoing piece of work. It's an ongoing, very active piece of work. As Ms Smith has said, we'll report back to you as matters develop. But I sincerely hope they do develop, and that the cases and circumstances of individual councils are listened to. Otherwise, we are at risk of losing something very beneficial and very special, and which completely meets our policy objectives of population retention and maximising education and employment opportunities throughout these islands. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, there's real frustration around this. You know, we've come up with a solution to a problem that's going to benefit our islands. It's a bespoke model and it's worked so well, and the touched on that other local authorities do something similar. I think a number of them are doing that because we were doing. They've taken our example and they've gone with it. So, we say I think this is a priority for us to continue, but we need to be funded to do it, or we need to find ways of funding for it to be taken forward. I think the other members watching this. No, really first.
Yeah, I'm just take everything you said, and I'm not going to convince my it's meant to be that, but really going forward. I was actually talking to somebody I know in one of the building companies this morning, actually, Gary. They're struggling to get staff, trades guys now. And the amount of work that we've got, all the different construction companies, take that one example, it's massive. So potentially going forward, that's a result. So we have to find some way of trying to continue it in some shape or form. We need something to do to have something. So much work over the years has been done to build it as well. So.
And I'm bringing this one more next.
I'm still not. The more we got transferred.
Windows shut.
Awesome.
No, I just like to echo what I said earlier. This is crucial to our islands. So that emphasis on young people to businesses affecting right across the world community. And I hope we'll take up the license of some funding more support this way forward. Because I feel safe, because I'm not confident when we get funding. So I think as members, I would urge anyone to take a license to this, and we're taking budget decisions, particularly to be with, as I said already, with third party revenues. We look out for what we have in the room to ask for the road to do something like that. This is going to massively affect the islands. I just hope we can support them.
Mr. Morrison, thank you.
I am a member of the committee, so.
I'm not sure, you went first.
No, I just, echo what was said, and also just to, I think, thank Lena and their team for the work they've been doing, and we've been seeing and hearing all the impact that it's already had, and as has been said, it's just crucial that this work is continued. I think it's anything less than continuation is a huge failure on our part. I think we have to work as members to find the way forward of ensuring that this work continues, not just for going on to, but also for the future of all our young people, and the amount, as Councillor Madison just said, all the work that's coming, builders, businesses looking for young people, and to keep young people on the island, we need apprenticeships, we need training skills, we need all that kept here, and if we're not taking the lead, then nobody will.
Somebody?
Thank you very much, and I'm also a member of the committee. I can understand, you know, it's almost like a double pronged attack here. It's two very distinct threads to the programmes, and one being, as we've already talked about today, in respect of changing no funding from the local growth funding, and the other being the risk to the accredited training programmes through the changes in the Scottish Parliament bill. I can understand putting the two together because obviously it makes sense to put them in the one report. I think we've got to make sure that we're not conflating them in our heads when it comes to talking about how we support it. Because I think when we spoke earlier, we spoke about the effects of the lack funding through the local growth fund, which is different. So I just think it's important to keep that differential in our heads, because they are two very different things that are affecting the same service. As you said, Chief Executive mentioned, possibly it is a case of unintended consequences in terms of the higher and further education, tertiary education bill, and I think it would be important to get that straightened first of all. I think there's a typo that kind of puzzled me in 5.4, and second last line there. It must be communicate directly, because it says no, instead of indicated with a community director, there must be community director. So I think that one would be that we do that communication and use of and ensure that there are no unintended consequences of impact of the really important work that has been done.
So,
Thank you, not remember. This is an exceptionally important service. I've been most supportive of it over the years. Since I've been on the and we can't afford to lose it. It's very, very important for our young people going forward. I wonder if we should not be echo what I'm supposed to say, that we should not be considering using our discussions tomorrow. Because I certainly wouldn't want to lose this service. The other notion I had was at a recent meeting with Spirit and Mara, they indicated that they were supporting apprentices at the parish. I wondered if we might approach the other major developers to see if they would support this service and offer some money to keep it going.
Chair, I'm sure if we are left to look at all the funding of this ourselves, we will certainly need support from others, and there would be no stone left unturned in doing that. As regards tomorrow's deliberations, you'll have heard my remarks earlier about looking ahead for at least the first 3 months of this year and possibly beyond that. But the difficulties of looking, well, there is no budget for much of this after that. That's the fact of the matter. I do, however, have some thoughts to share with you at the seminar tomorrow about what we might do in the event that you wish to retain these services, or at least part of them, and how these might be funded. So that is on the agenda for the budget seminar tomorrow, but that, I'll leave it till tomorrow.
Yeah, I was just wondering what level of funding are we looking at? When we're discussing, what viewed, what level of funding and, the top end that we do need, because I know that we're looking at facing things for 3 months, but what level of funding and how will you think? What's the cost of it?
Think to the answer.
The provision of apprenticeships, it's half a million a year as well. I'm putting all an apprenticeship program to some of the money boys and take their services that will be content.
If you any other likes, so just in Councillor Murray's point, well, it's a two-pronged threat. Comes from two different areas, and just need to ensure we're addressing both of them with as much favour as we can. Okay, there are. Yes, this is a approach from noted members of each vote report. Thank you. Item 16 on the agenda is reports outstanding, of which there are none. And we now going to file the specified items on the agenda. So, remember.